Ancient Egypt is long gone, but archaeologists are still finding its treasures. Along the winding Nile River in northeast Africa, one of the greatest civilizations in history thrived for more than 3,000 years. But Egypt was ruled by the Greeks, then the Romans, and finally the Muslims. The greatness of the ancient civilization was buried under layers of these different cultures, only to come to the surface again hundreds of years later. But scientists have also discovered an ancient queen in Egypt, and it's not what you think. Along with that, there are other discoveries about ancient Egyptian tombs and pyramids that will shock you. So stay with us till the end. Archaeologists working at the ancient necropolis of Saqqara have found the tomb of an Egyptian queen. Her name is believed to be Queen Neith, a previously unknown ruler. They have also found a new collection of 300 coffins, over 100 mummies, and other artifacts. The latest group of mummies probably has the bodies of Tut's generals and advisors in them. During the excavations, 22 tunnels that were connected to each other were also found. Unlike other finds at Saqqara, which mostly come from the Old Kingdom or the Late Period, these are burials from the New Kingdom, between 1570 BCE and 1069 BCE. We have also got some names for you. Khnumjedef was in charge of the nobles, and was a priest in the pyramid complex of Unas, the last king of the 5th dynasty. There are bright pictures of everyday life in the tomb. The second is for Messi, who is known as the Keeper of Secrets and the Helper Commander of the Big Palace. Here you can see Messi. The team also found a number of colored limestone statues of servants that they think belong to Messi. In a secret room here at the bottom of a 15-meter well, they also found the body of a man named Haka Shabis, buried in limestone. It was clear that no one had touched this coffin in about 4,300 years. They found a mummy of a man wrapped in gold foil when they opened the lid. This is thought to be the oldest and most complete mummy that is not royal that has been found so far. There were also several statues of the judge and writer Fatak near an offering table and a coffin containing his mummified remains. Dr. Mustafa Waziri, Secretary General of the Egyptian Supreme Council of Antiquities, stated that while many statues had been discovered in the Saqqara region over the last century, few were as large as the most recent finds. The current discovery also includes numerous amulets, cosmetic tools, statues of the idol Ptah Soker, statues of deities, pottery, and votive vessels. But this is just the start. Egypt's connection with ancient tombs and pyramids is endless, and we have got more for you. Tomb of Tutankhamun. As we have mentioned, Egypt is known for its mummies, and this tomb was no different. The tomb of Tutankhamun was rediscovered by archaeologist Howard Carter in 1922. But it is believed that the tomb was lost for ages. Tutankhamun was the 18th dynasty pharaoh. But what's interesting is its location. Tut's tomb was in the Valley of the Kings on the west bank of the Nile. It had been covered by trash for about 3,000 years, which kept thieves from getting inside. Robbers entered the tomb twice in the years immediately following the burial, but Tutankhamun's mummy and most of the burial goods remained intact. The tomb's low position, dug into the floor of the valley, allowed its entrance to be hidden by debris deposited by flooding and tomb construction. But Carter's team braved rumors of a curse. He opened the tomb full of treasures, including Tut's mummy, who was wearing a beautiful gold death mask. These items showed that Egypt was at its most luxurious during that time. Speaking of ancient Egypt, its beauty wasn't hidden from military leaders, and Napoleon Bonaparte tried to grab the opportunity. Black granite slab. An officer in Napoleon Bonaparte's army saw a black granite slab with writing on one side near the Egyptian town of Rashid, Rosetta, in 1798. The Rosetta Stone, which dates back to 196 BC, is thought to have been made in Memphis for the pharaoh Ptolemy V to prove his right to rule Egypt. It was written in 3 languages: hieroglyphic, Demotic, and Greek. When it was translated into English in 1822, it helped people understand Egyptian hieroglyphs for the first time, which shed new light on the whole history of ancient Egypt. Since the end of the Napoleonic Wars, the British have had it, but Egypt has long asked them to give it back. This type of granite is highly prized for its timeless beauty and durability, making it a popular choice for a wide range of applications in both residential and commercial settings. Tomb of Suzanne I. A French Egyptologist named Pierre Montet was digging near Tanis, which was the capital of the New Kingdom, when he found a tomb with as much treasure as King Tut's. At the start of World War II, this discovery was made. Suzanne I was a pharaoh from the 21st dynasty who isn't well known. He was buried in a coffin made of solid silver and decorated with beautiful designs. He had a beautiful gold burial mask around his neck. People who study history were amazed by how beautiful the silver pharaoh's tomb was. The amount of money and power shown was something they thought Egyptian pharaohs did not have when Suzanne's was in charge, which was about 3,000 years ago. Suzanne's tomb is notable for the condition in which it was found. Almost all pharaonic tombs were entirely grave-robbed, but Suzanne's tomb was one of only 2 royal tombs discovered in fully intact condition, the other being the tomb of Pharaoh Amenemope. However, the humid climate of Lower Egypt meant only the metal objects had survived. Tomb of Queen Hatshepsut. When Queen Hatshepsut died around 1458 BC, her stepson and successor, Thutmose, got rid of a lot of the records of her rule. In the late 1800s, archaeologists figured out what the hieroglyphics on her temple at Deir el-Bahri in Luxor meant. Before that, not much was known about Egypt's first great female leader. In 1903, Howard Carter found Hatshepsut's sarcophagus. Like most of the tombs in the Valley of the Kings, it was empty. But another tomb found in the temple had 2 coffins inside. One of them was identified as that of Hatshepsut's wet nurse. Scientists found a molar in a jar with the queen's preserved organs that fit into a space in the mummy's jaw. This led to the identification of Hatshepsut's body in the other coffin in 2007. Now Hatshepsut's body is kept in the Egyptian Museum in Cairo. Tomb of Saqqara. In the necropolis of Saqqara, which is about 20 miles south of Cairo, archaeologists have made a groundbreaking discovery. They have found an Egyptian tomb that was carved into rock more than 4,000 years ago. The tomb, which was built between 2649 and 2150 BC and has many graves and artifacts from various time periods, offers priceless clues into the history of this region. During their mission, the international team found a lot of treasures, such as burial grounds, building parts, and many interesting artifacts. They found the remains of a person buried next to a brightly colored mask. They also found the grave of a small child from the Second Dynasty. A tomb case from the 18th Dynasty, 1550–1295 BC, inside the tomb revealed an amazingly well-preserved alabaster vessel. Also found were 2 terracotta statues of the ancient Egyptian goddess Isis, who was first linked to funeral rituals, and the child god Harpocrates, who was known during the Ptolemaic periods as the god of silence and secrets. In addition, a stela, a carved stone slab, with an inscription saying that it belonged to a man named Heroides was found, along with several amulets and ostraca. A festival of mummies was discovered recently by an Egyptian team at Bahariya Oasis, located about 380 kilometers west of the pyramids. 4 tombs were excavated, and found inside them were 105 mummies, many of them beautifully gilded. These mummies, many sumptuously decorated with religious scenes, represent the very best of Roman period mummies ever found in Egypt. These ancient remains are around 2,000 years old, but they have withstood the test of time remarkably well. A lot of important things found in Egypt were found by accident. For example, Carter's work in the Valley of the Kings in 1899, before Tutankhamun's tomb was found, was affected by a horse that kept falling over. Carter was riding his horse back to his rest house on the West Bank at the end of the day when it fell, revealing a hole in the ground. Carter looked into the shaft and found a sealed room with an empty coffin that didn't have a name on it. This room is now known as the Tomb of Bab el-Hosan, which means the tomb of the door of the horse. Carter went into the tomb and saw a statue sitting next to the coffin, wrapped in a linen shroud. Mentuhotep was the first king of Dynasty II, and the statue is thought to be of him. The king is shown with an Osirid-shaped short skirt and the red crown of the delta on his head. Egyptologists still don't know what this statue is for, but it is now on display at the Cairo Museum. At around the same time, an accident in Alexandria led to the discovery of a second important secret. In 1900, Qom el-Shokafa's site was used as a quarry. Ahmed Kasbara was riding his donkey one day when the animal's leg fell into a hole in the desert floor. The event revealed a maze of tunnels below ground, which were later named the Catacombs of Qom el-Shokafa. The tomb of Ramses II. The tomb of the great pharaoh Ramses II is not open to tourists, which is a shame. It was one of the first tombs to be dug near the entrance to the Valley of the Kings. However, King Ramses II may have picked one of the worst spots for his tomb, as it has been flooded 7 times. One of the biggest tombs in the valley is KV7. It's 686 square meters in size and goes 168 meters into the hillside. Some scholars think that he started building it in the 2nd year of his reign, using a plan similar to the right-angled layout of 18th dynasty royal tombs. This tomb has never been cleaned out in a planned way. Before Howard Carter, Henry Salt, around 1817, Champollion and Rosellini, Lepsius, Harry Burton, Theodore Davis between 1913 and 1914, and Harry Burton were some of the many archaeologists and explorers who worked to clean out the tomb of Ramses II. All of these explorers, but the most recent one, gave up on the job very quickly. The French archaeologist Christian Leblanc has been working here since 1993, and his reports often talk about important finds. There is still a lot of structural engineering work to be done and thousands of cubic meters of trash to be cleaned up. It doesn't look like Tomb KV7 will be open to the public anytime soon. The tomb has only a few items found during excavations, likely because it was robbed a lot in the past. While Ramses III was king, thieves broke into the tomb in the 29th year of his reign. There were probably many other thefts as well. Stone temples. These 2 stone temples were carved into a mountainside near the border between Egypt and Sudan around 1244 BC. They were by far the biggest building project that Ramses II oversaw. There were 4 huge statues of the pharaoh at the entrance to the larger temple. Inside, a network of rooms was designed so that on 2 days a year, light could shine on another statue of Ramses. The temple had been abandoned for a long time and was buried in sand until 1817, when Giovanni Belzoni, an Italian archaeologist and former circus strongman, found its entrance. In the 1960s, the whole temple complex was taken apart and put back together on higher ground, so that the Aswan High Dam could be built. Queen Berenice Temple. Egypt's Supreme Council of Antiquities said in 2010 that archaeologists had found the remains of a temple that was built 2,200 years ago under the streets of Alexandria. The temple was built by Queen Berenice I, who was married to Ptolemy III and was pharaoh of Egypt from 246, 222 BC. It was dedicated to Bastet, an Egyptian goddess who looked like a cat. Ancient Egyptians respected cats and kept them as pets. About 600 statues of cats were found inside the temple, which suggests that this continued even during the Greek-speaking Ptolemaic dynasty, which ruled Egypt from 332 BC, when Alexander the Great came to power, until Cleopatra killed herself in 30 AD. Egyptian Queen's Tomb. Archaeologists found hundreds of wine jars that are over 5,000 years old, while they were digging up the tomb of the Egyptian queen, Merit Neith, in Abydos. A lot of the containers were closed and the stoppers were still in place. Some of them even had the remains of grape seeds that had been kept well. Scientists are amazed every day by the amazing details they find during investigations, like the perfectly preserved grape seeds, crafts, and even footprints in the mud. These are the remains of people's lives and actions from 5,000 years ago. The discovery of sealed whole wine jars at Abydos, along with well-preserved grape pips, could help us learn a lot more about the first people who made, used and traded wine in the Mediterranean and North Africa. By looking at the leftovers inside the jars, for example, we could learn about the chemical makeup of the wine that was inside, which would reveal its flavor and any added ingredients that were used. Along with the wine jars, Kohler's group wants to find out more about the life of Merit Neith, who lived around 3000 BCE. The tomb's excavations also revealed writings that suggested the Egyptian queen was in charge of important government jobs, such as the royal treasury. The tombs of 41 servants and courtiers are also part of the Egyptian queen's huge burial complex. Researchers say that these tombs were built over a long period of time in several stages. This conclusion goes against the idea that royal Egyptian burials during this time included ritual killings of people as sacrifices, which was often thought in early research but never really proven. The team that is digging at the tomb is still going strong and hopes to find out more about Merit Neith's life and impact on Egypt. 4,300 years old tomb. According to Live Science, a group of Egyptian and German archaeologists working at the site of Dahshur's royal pyramids and large necropolis near Cairo have found a tomb that is 4,300 years old and belongs to a priestess or royal official. The tomb is decorated with scenes from everyday life in Egypt's Old Kingdom. The grave is in a mastaba, which is a rectangular mud brick tomb with a flat top and walls that slope down. Stefan Seidelmeyer, who used to work for the German Archaeological Institute, and his colleagues figured out that it was built around 2300 BC, in the late 5th or early 6th dynasty, based on the style of the building and the pottery that was found inside. The unique wall paintings show people interacting in markets, sailing on the Nile, and donkeys stepping on grain to thresh it. Along with them is a hieroglyphic writing that names the owners of the burial goods as Seneb Neb Af, a man who was in charge of managing tenants, and his wife Edet, who is called Lady of the Sycamore and a priestess of the sky goddess Hathor. Said Seidelmeyer that the next step in the decades-long process of excavating the site will probably be to look for mummies in the burial shafts. Tomb of Aswan. When archaeologists dig on a hillside near the ancient Egyptian city of Aswan, the Nile, they find some things that make them wonder. The most important question is why two mummies were stuck together in the same stone tomb. An Italian and Egyptian archaeological mission worked near the Aga Khan shrine, west of Aswan. While there, they looked at the multi-level structure carved into the hillside. When it was first found outside of official channels during illegal excavations, the government stepped in and took charge. The joint group put the site's date between 332 BC and 395 AD, which means it was built sometime between the late Greek and Roman times. In a news release, Ayman Ashmawi, who is in charge of the Egyptian archaeological sector of the Supreme Council, said that the group found 33 graves and that up to 40% of the bodies were those of people who had died as babies or in their first couple of years. They also found some even more amazing things, like the 10-level tomb that still had oil lamps inside that may have been left there by mourners. The team found a number of mummies, including two bodies stuck together in a stone coffin. The group is going to look into the two to see if they are dating. The team also didn't understand why there was colored cardboard, burnt clay, stones, wooden coffins, and sacrificial tables. They are still looking into the finds, but Saeed says that the artifacts already show that the middle-class people of Aswan Island were likely buried in the lower part of the tomb, while the wealthy people were buried in the upper part of the multi-level structure. There were tombs carved right into mountain rock, and tombs that were near an open courtyard surrounded by milk brick walls. Early studies have shown that some of the people buried in these tombs died of infectious diseases, while others died of osteoarthritis or not getting enough food. A case of tuberculosis could have killed an entire family. If the remains are studied more, we might learn more about the diseases that were common in the area at that time and how contagious they were. Tomb of Ptahshepses. Archaeologists have found a lost tomb with the mummy of a high-ranking Egyptian official inside it again. Ptahshepses lived about 4,400 years ago in the 25th and 24th centuries BC, and this was his tomb. This week, Archaeologists from the Czech Institute of Egyptology at Prague's Charles University said they used satellite images and old maps to find the tomb near the sites of Abu Sir and Saqqara in 2022. Also this year, more digging was done at the site. Auguste Mariette, a French scholar, partially opened up the tomb almost 160 years ago. He found a false door with lots of intricate decorations and a lintel, which is a type of supporting beam. The objects were taken out by Mariette and are now on display at the British Museum in London. But the official's tomb was soon covered by desert sand after it was found. There is a long and unique biography of Hatshepsut's life inside the false door. Menkaure was an ancient pharaoh who ruled Egypt from about 2700 BC to 2200 BC and was born in 2532 BC and died in 2504 BC. The story is about how he learned to write at the court of Menkaure. In ancient Egypt, the annual Nile floods were the main source of fuel that made the country grow. Good floods made the crops grow well. The tax was paid with grain. As a result, good floods brought in a lot of tax money for the state. Grain was a type of money that was used to buy bread for people who worked on state-sponsored projects, among other things. When Hatshepsut was alive, the annual flooding went down, which meant that less and less tax money was coming in at a time when the kingdom's costs were going up. On the lintel, there is also a reference to Osiris, who was the god of fertility and the embodiment of the dead. This is one of the earliest records of this god. As time went on, the annual flooding decreased even more, and this was one of the main reasons why the Old Kingdom fell apart. The official married the daughter of Userkaf, a pharaoh who ruled for a short time in the early 25th century BC, according to Hatshepsut's biography. This makes the official Hatshepsut even more unique, since he was the one who thought of adding the famous Egyptian god of the afterlife to the Egyptian pantheon. The site was dug up and a large 137-foot-long and 72-foot-wide part of the tomb's roof was found. It has a chapel that is mostly still standing, an entrance with painted decorations, and a long corridor for getting to the chapel. Archaeologists looked at the burial chamber this past spring. It looked like it had been broken into in the past. Even so, it still had some original funerary artifacts like pottery, the remains of votive offerings, jars, and a fish that had been mummified. Tomb in Ptolemaic dynasty. Egypt's archaeologists have made the exciting discovery of a necropolis that had been hidden for thousands of years. The cemetery is more than 2,000 years old and has tombs from the Pharaonic late period and the Ptolemaic dynasty. It has at least 8 tombs, and each one has more than one sarcophagi. The newly found underground tomb complex is in the Minya Governorate, which is south of Cairo. It is only 6 kilometers, 3.8 miles, from the Kmun necropolis Tuna El Gabel. There are a lot of burial shafts and family graves inside the complex, so scientists will have a lot to look into for years to come. Beginning in late 2018, the dig was led by Mustafa Waziri, who is the Secretary General of the Supreme Council of Antiquities. The group was looking for the part of the cemetery that had been dug up in the 15th Nome division of ancient Upper Egypt. One tomb was especially interesting because it belonged to a high priest of Thoth, the ibis-headed Egyptian god of the dead, writing, science, magic, and wisdom. The hieroglyphics on the canopic jars in the tomb identified the priest as Jehudi Erdi S. The priest was also given the title One of the Great Five, which was only given to Thoth's most senior priests. 4 of these canopic jars, made of carved alabaster and topped with the heads of Horus's 4 sons, were also found in the tomb. They were still in good shape and had the priest's organs inside them. The team also found at least 1,000 Ushabti figurines, which are glazed earthenware figures of servants or followers that were put in Egyptian graves to be with the dead in the afterlife. The mummy itself was very important because it had a bronze collar with the goddess Nut spreading her wings to protect her in the afterlife. On top of that, bronze sheets that were gilded with gold, 2 bronze eyes that were decorated with ivory and crystal, and 4 amulets made of semi-precious stones were found on the body. 13 people were buried in the tomb. In another tomb, what looks like a family group was found. A total of 40 sarcophagi were found in the 8 tombs that were found in the complex. We don't know how much more is down there yet, but this is already a huge find. Last year, the ministry said that at least 17 mummies had been found in a tomb in Tuna El Jebel. The find also seems to prove that the area is linked to Thoth. Archaeologists had already found that thousands of mummified ibises and baboons, which were sacred to Thoth, had been buried there. 60 mummies found. A group of Spanish archaeologists found 60 mummies in 2 tombs in Luxor, an ancient port city in Egypt. After the 18th dynasty, 1550–1292 BCE, the 2 tombs were built. They are linked to Vizier Amenhotep Hui, who was a high-ranking official who worked for Pharaoh Amenhotep III. The newly found tombs are linked to the vizier's burial site by 2 chambers. The vizier's grave is in a chapel with 30 columns that have epigraphs on them. The building is a great example of the style, and there is evidence that the vizier's tomb at some point became a necropolis, as Francisco Martín Valentín, director of the Institute of Ancient Egyptian Studies in Madrid and project leader for the vizier Amenhotep Hui, puts it. Amenhotep Hui was vizier to Amenhotep III, who ruled Egypt from about 1386 to 1350 BCE. He worked for Amenhotep III during the last third of his reign. He was a leader of the opposition and was against the religious practices that Akhenaten, the pharaoh's son, pushed. Before this was found, all the mummies that had been buried in the area were of high-ranking priests of Amun of Thebes. Due to the fact that the bodies were mummified after death, experts were sure that they belonged to wealthy people. A show at the Luxor Museum shows the items found in the vizier's tomb, such as a sarcophagus with the god Amun on it. When the digs start up again at the end of September, the vizier's chapel will be fixed up and 6 columns will be put back together. Tomb of Mentuemhat. People know the Valley of the Kings for the beautiful Egyptian tombs that have been found there. The Egyptians thought that people could live forever after they died. Their rituals were very specific and included things like mummifying the body, making burials with certain grave goods, and casting magic spells. We will look at a group of very complicated Egyptian tombs in this article. We will look at their surroundings as well as their beautiful frescoes and impressive building designs. The grave of Mentuemhat can be found in El Asasif, which is on the western shore of the Nile and across from Luxor. It's there for people who want to find it. This person was a very important Egyptian official whose name was Mentuemhat. What was being looked into was him. He was both the governor of Upper Egypt and the mayor of Thebes. It was very important to have him in your life. He was called Amun because he was the 4th prophet of Amun. It is interesting to note that both the Taharqa and the Psamtik I used Mentuemhat in their own roles. The tomb in the Valley of the Kings, that is often called KV 63, was open to the public not long ago. There was a time when people thought the tomb belonged to a royal family. However, it is now thought that the tomb was used to store bodies before they were mummified. Several hundred storage jars of different sizes and 7 wooden coffins can be found in the room. Besides that, there are 7 coffins there. In 2005, Dr. Otto Schaden and the other archaeologists on his team were able to find the tomb. There are many different buildings that make up the Karnak temple complex in Egypt. Each one is very different from the others. Part of this group of structures are pylons, temples, chapels, and other buildings. It is not too far away from Luxor. People built the building between 2000 BC and 1700 BC during the Middle Kingdom, when Senusret I was king. This is the time frame in which the building was made. The building was supposed to be put up during these times. In the 18th dynasty, the most important place of worship for the Theban triad was in a region close to Karnak. People in the area could find this place of worship. Discoveries at Tel El Deir. At the Tel El Deir site, the mission has found the tombs of other civilizations that lived in Egypt in the past, such as the Greeks and Romans. When archaeologists worked at the site in 2019, they discovered gold coins from the Byzantine era and Ushabti figurines that had the royal seal of Psamtik II, a 26th dynasty pharaoh. A number of figurines were used as amulets. They showed the eye of Horus, the knot of Isis, Tiet, and gods like Horus, Isis, Nephthys, and Taweret. In the past, archaeologists have also found limestone coffins at the site. Some of the coffins had pictures of the dead people on them. It was just over a month ago that archaeologists found a tunnel at the Taposiris Magna Temple west of Alexandria, Egypt, that may lead to the lost tomb of Queen Cleopatra. So there you have it. So much to learn today. I am pretty sure most of you didn't know about these tombs. Do let me know in the comments what your thoughts are. We will catch you in the next one. Thanks for watching.